Some time ago, I produced a video on how to detect email spam, but I've been receiving a lot of spam lately, and some of it is pretty low tech. I thought it might be appropriate to select a few examples and show you some more about how to detect email spam. Alright, the first thing we want to talk about is how to open our message source. Now, I'm using Mozilla Thunderbird for this demonstration. You may be using Microsoft Outlook, and if so, that's fine. I've certainly used that for many years. But your interface may be a little bit different. So once you watch this video, then take a look and see if you can find the similar selections on Microsoft Outlook. Okay. But what we're going to do is select a specific email and then go to the View menu and go to Message Source. Now, when you click on Message Source, it opens up the Message Source window, and you actually can see the email in a text format. What that means then is that you are not viewing it in the regular email browser. You are not activating any links. Everything is pure text. So if there were a virus or a Trojan or whatever, you would not be activating it. But you would be able to see the content of the message. Now, I'm not going to open one right here because it will also include email addresses, etc., that may need to be masked out. So what I have done is selected 6 email messages for demonstration, and I have opened the window, copied the text from the window, and placed it into a text file so that I could then omit those email addresses, and we can discuss each of those email samples individually here in just a moment. Okay. So let's look at the first of these messages that I have copied and modified. You'll notice that I have omitted the prefix of the email address. I've left the domains. Wanted you to see the variety of email addresses, or at least domains, that you may be confronted with when you open these messages. But we do have privacy concerns, because you have to recognize that in many cases these email addresses belong to real live people. They have visited a site that allowed them to contract a Trojan, as a for instance, and this then in turn allowed whoever concocted this scheme to enslave their computer, and now their computer is part of the entire spamming process, and they may be sending out hundreds of thousands of emails a day as part of a collective process and never even realize it, other than they may think, gosh, my computer has gotten slow. All right. So, but in this particular case, we need to look at the return path first of all. If that is not a return path that appears to be similar to or compatible with what you would expect from the sender's address, then there may be something wrong there. Again, with the delivered to, if that is not an email address or domain that you would normally expect to receive this particular type of email, then again, you may be looking at a clue. And realize we are looking at clues. There is probably not going to be one definitive thing that says, okay, this is spam. But you take all of the various clues and add them together, and then collectively you make a determination that this is spam. Now, this file, again, is a text file. It is when you open up the view source. And when you do that in the email client, whatever you're using, whether it's Outlook or Thunderbird or whatever, it is not going to register with the email browser that you have opened the email. So when you close this, it's still going to look like it's unread. But it's opening it in text form so that no links are active. If it's got HTML code in it, you're going to see the pure HTML encoding. You are not going to see the results as you would in your browser, etc. One of the things that spam filters do is they go through and look for certain characteristics in an email, and then they assign points to those, and they add up these points, and when they get to a certain value, whatever value has been specified for them by you or the network administrator or whomever, then they're going to say, okay, enough. You told me when I got to this point I don't have to look anymore. It's spam, and it throws it out. You can adjust that level either up or down for sensitivity so that it's either more sensitive or less sensitive. But we're doing basically the same thing. We're looking for characteristics, and we're trying to put a collective picture together to determine whether or not this is spam before we open the email. If it's a suspicious email, if it's not a suspicious email, you're not going to be in here in the first place. But we're assuming they're suspicious. Now, received from a Xerox device at my domain. Well, that one, again, tells me that this is bogus because I don't have a Xerox device. But there are companies that do. And if they, for whatever reason, got lucky and put the correct domain on there, then that one might not be a trigger for me, because there are companies that I do receive emails from Xerox work centers, which is what this says. See, it says on the subject, the scanned image from a Xerox work center, and they are PDF images. So, and you'll notice further down here that it's going to indicate that this is a PDF image. Let's see right here. It talks about please opening the attached document. It mentions a PDF and a zip file. And here's the zip file name. Well, in the first place, if you don't know what it is, don't ever, or who it's from, don't ever open a zip file. A zip file can include, basically what a zip file is a container. It compresses other files into a smaller file as one package. And when you open that zip file, you will and extract those files, then they re-expand to their original size. And if they're executables, you can have executable files that you click on, etc. And if you click on an executable file that you've gotten as a result of a zip file, then it's going to do whatever it wants to. If it's a virus, it can infect your machine. If it's a Trojan, it can open a back door. If it's a worm, it can burrow through your entire system, including your network. If you're connected to a network of computers, whatever you do can have an impact on everybody else. And since it is behind the firewall at that point, then you've got a real problem, because your router firewall cannot protect you. You've already breached that when you accepted this email. Now notice it also says that the attached file is in PDF format, and they even provide a helpful link to get the reader, which I think is very nice of them. But all of the things together here pretty much indicate that this is a spam email. So we can dismiss it at this point. And so let's move on to the next example. So here is the second example, and again we have a return path here. This one, actually, if you'll notice, the from comes from Canadian Meds. I'm sure most of you have seen as many of these as I have, and there have been multiple renditions or variations, but they're all, Canadian Meds, and it's pure spam. Notice it came from a CPA domain, I actually went, in this particular case, I went to the website for the CPA firm and I reported it to them. I will not do that in every case, but there are a few cases here and there that I do try to at least help someone. And I know for a fact that a credible CPA firm is not going to be sending out spam or allowing their machines to be compromised. And the kind of confidential matter that is handled in a CPA firm, it's very important that their machines be uncompromised. So I contacted them, left them an email to the effect, and gave them the email address that had been compromised. You can see I omitted the prefix here, but I gave them the full thing. Notice the subject line. This one, first of all, did not jump out and grab me immediately, but I was trying to figure out why a CPA firm would be sending out a subject line quite like that. And so I thought something was, perhaps suspicious. And then I started noticing a little further, and we have Canadian meds, etc. This is just another variation on the same thing, and they want you to open it. You can see a lot of nonsense here that you've got to, go through. Now you will notice that the doc type here is HTML. So they have actually sent, and I'm not going to go into the process of showing you how to read HTML code, but the point is that had you opened this in the client browser, Outlook, Thunderbird, whatever, it would have shown you, perhaps pictures. It would have shown you maybe a table with stuff in it. Now, one of the things that they will often do, and I'll show this to you later if I don't find it here. I don't think I'm going to find it in this particular one, but they will actually have two sets. No, it's not in this one. They will actually have two sets of messages, and I'll show you one of those in just a minute. But they even go through the process, giving you the ability to unsubscribe right here, etc. And sometimes that's the last thing you want to do, because then they find out they've got an actual live address, because they'll send them to everywhere in the hopes of getting anybody to respond. They may send out, in a matter of moments, 100,000 of these, hoping to get a 1% response. Well, if you think about it, 1% doesn't sound like a lot, but on 100,000, 1% is a fair amount. And when you're sending them out by the 100,000s per every few minutes or every day or whatever, depending on how much bandwidth they have and how many slave machines they have and all that good kind of stuff, then it can be a lot of emails that have been sent, and 1% then turns out to be enough to pay for their system and make a nice healthy profit, particularly if you get into these where they have money that they want to have you help launder, and they're appealing to someone's sense of greed or someone else's sense of grief, or whatever it happens to be. Those are more on the level of scams than simple spam. But just be aware, this is another one of the forms. Okay, so let's move to number 3 on our hit parade. Now this one is kind of interesting because of the subject matter. It is let's see if I can find it right here. It's a notice to appear in court. It's actually from notice to appear in court. Some of them will have a subject line of notice to appear in court. When you open up the email, in this particular case, there's the subject line. I was looking for it right there. Notice to appear in court with what appears to be an official numbering. When you open it up, you begin to see that you have a notice to appear. I actually received one of these, and they're coming from everywhere. You can have one in Des Moines, one in Los Angeles, one in wherever. I had one that was a notice to appear. The first one I ever got, I think, was to appear in Hawaii in a court. Um, it was laughable, but it's not laughable if you're someone who doesn't know better and you try to respond to some of these things. And that's what they're hoping to get somebody to do, not because they think they need to appear in Hawaii, but because they're worried that there is legal authority seeking them, and so then they try to make contact. And that's what they're hoping you do, is try to make contact, because then whatever nefarious purpose they have, whether it is to uh, launch a Trojan, or maybe even to take you through some sort of a scam and take your money that way. They have you once you make contact. Don't ever make contact. I talk about this in an article on my website. But in this particular case, notice something interesting. We have this verbiage, and I'm not sure exactly why they're doing this, but this has been very consistent in the ones I have seen. Notice the name. Watch this. It is repeated again in an HTML form, which, okay, but the name is different. And in every one of these that I have seen so far, that has been exactly the same pattern. I don't know. I haven't tried to do any research. Somebody a lot smarter than me has probably got something out on the web to tell us why they're doing it in this fashion. If I went into the process of researching it more deeply, it may be some sort of a flag for the spammer that they've got something here. I just don't know, but it has been a pattern, a recurring pattern in each situation. Now, one thing that you will notice too is that whenever you have the HTML code, very often it is used to mask something else. And I will show you that in a moment here. That's probably the most that we need to take away from example number 3. So let's move to example number 4. Now this one purports to be from Macy's for a spring bonus voucher. And you'll see that it says that it was actually from someone at adnone.com, but it says it's Macy's Rewards. All right. The interesting thing about this one is that you remember I said that with HTML code you can actually hide other code or hide other words in the text. Well, here's an example of it. And one of the things that spammers do sometimes is to try to embed other text to fool the spam filters into thinking it's not spam. And you may see clippings of news articles, or maybe even a paperback book, or a recipe, or any of a number of things. Well, that's what they've done here. And if you take the HTML code and change the color of the text, the foreground, so that it matches the color of the background, then the text becomes essentially invisible to the human eye, even though it's still there. And the computer's going to see it. You won't. All right. So in this particular case, it is HTML. But if you go down and you start looking, it says, that your spring bonus voucher is going to expire on so-and-so date. But then it starts getting a little odd, because it has a tagline in here, Ray, have you seen this yet? And that account number. Then it starts talking about couldn't get any better and warm maple syrup. We're talking about pancakes. Go down even further and you begin to look at a recipe for, and notice the coloring here. Okay, if you'll look that up, you can see what color that is. My best memory, and I'd have to look it up to make sure, but my best memory is that is white. And so if you got a white background and a white foreground, you won't see this. But apparently you're washing and rinsing beans and bringing them to a boil. All right. Then you've got a list of things for bed and bath and women and whatever. So I would assume you're going to see that in the text message. Notice you've got a website for adnone.com with Macy's department store behind it and a voucher number right here. So what this is an actual link that they're wanting you to click on. The link is, let's see if I can pull that out for you just right. The link is going to tell you that you are clicking on this particular uniform reference or uniform resource, the URL, the address, okay, and it's at adnone.com. Now I've seen some of these that would have said instead, it might have actually said Macy's or whatever, but if you moused over it, then you would see the actual address, which was adnone.com/Macy's-department store and the voucher number. So in this case, they're expecting you to kind of more or less be dumb enough to click on a link that has Macy's department store after adnone, whatever adnone.com is. But in some cases, it would say www.macys.com or whatever, and yet the actual link would be what you see here, and that's where you're really going to go to if you click on that link, where you can lose your personal information or whatever. They may have you filling in a form, so you're giving them all your personal information, credit card information for a purchase, whatever. But this is another example. Let's take a look at the next example. Here we have an example of another spam email. It's supposedly coming from somebody named Katie or Kate Oliver at remaxgeorgia.com. We don't know the exact address, but interestingly enough, it's telling you that you have sent them an order and that they're processing it in the amount of $311.82, and the order details are in an attached PDF file. Now notice once again that the file is a zip file. It is not a PDF file. And they're telling you that you'll receive an email from them shortly once they've set up your account and all this kind of stuff, and be sure to quote the reference number if you want to contact them about the order. They're hoping you're going to wig out and say, wait a minute, I didn't order anything for $311.82. What is this nonsense? Pick up the phone and start to call, or that you're going to email them back, or whatever the situation. Again, in other words, again, they're wanting to prompt you to make contact, and at the very least, they want you to open that file because you're going to see what's going on. And so you open that attachment, and now you've got a problem on your computer. This last example is supposed to be from Naija.org. It has a little bit of interesting, at least interesting to me, history. It is the only other one of the 6 that I chose to contact the organization and let them know that they had been compromised, or at least that someone was representing that they were from them. They actually sent back by automated reply a very lengthy message that said that they had been the target of a rather concerted effort on the part of someone that was representing that they were from Naija. And they had law enforcement and investigators looking into this. So it was kind of like, thank you, we appreciate the information, we already know about it, we're trying to get it fixed, please be patient, etc. But they supposedly are from, the email is supposedly from the Electronics Payment Association at Naija. And it is telling you about an ACH rejection due to a system malfunction. Now, ACH, for those of you who do not know, is an acronym for the Automated Clearinghouse. When you do an electronics funds transfer, an EFT, let's say you make a payment to someone electronically, then it goes through the ACH system. And it says that this is an ACH payment cancellation. that was recently initiated from your checking account, that automatically is hopefully going to get you wigging out. I didn't send any payments to anybody. And you can see the report details in the transaction report that happens to be a PDF. And they show a PDF reader, etc. If you look at the HTML code that follows, you will find that the report actually it has a link on it going to mypafamilylawyer.com with tirelessly Madeira HTML. I have no clue, but anyway, that's where you're really going. You're not going to this report, and it's certainly not a PDF. Okay, it's an HTML document. Now, whether they are trying to trick you into entering in your personal information and maybe some credit card information or banking information or whatever, I have no idea. I'm not going over there to find out. What I do know is you don't want to go there, and neither do I. I hope these examples, coupled with my earlier video, will help you hold these irritations at bay so they don't become a major headache. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you again.